Rogers TV.
Rogers TV Durham would like to acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation of the Mississauga Nation. May we respectfully honor the knowledge and understanding of the Indigenous stewards of these ancestral lands and ensure that the voices of the First Peoples are represented in our collections, programs, and services.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of At the Heart of Business. I'm your host, Judith Tate. At the Heart of Business is a conversation with women in business discussing their challenges and successes. I'd like to welcome my first guest, Joanne Free-Pameli of Joanne Free Coaching and Consulting.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
Lovely.
So tell us about your business.
Okay. So it's called Joanne Free Coaching and Consulting, and it is both.
Okay.
So I offer business leadership coaching to any leader in any business, whether it's small business, whether it's an entrepreneur, or whether it's in a larger corporate entity. And then I also offer change management consulting. I've been in the change management business for close to about 15, 16 years now. And so those are two streams of my business. And then the third stream is offering workshops where I use emotional culture deck tools, which I think we're probably going to get into later.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and what's the underlying foundation or your motivation for starting your business?
There's a few. So first of all, I've always had, and you hear this a lot, but I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
I've always had a creative side. I followed the traditional route, went through school, went through university, got a full-time job, worked in the corporate space, but I've always sort of tinkered around with entrepreneurial stuff. Yeah. And so I actually started this business in 2015. So 9 years ago. And I was doing it on the side because I was working full-time in corporate. But again, I always sort of wanted to venture out on my own. I think over time, having been in corporate for, at that point, probably about 20 years, 19 or 20 years, I really wanted to step out. And I started doing that by taking on contract roles. So instead of switching directly from working full-time in corporate and going straight into business on my own, I started doing contract roles. So whether it be a year-long contract, a 6-month contract, and I really had the opportunity to work in so many business types doing that. I've worked in retail, I've worked in insurance, I've worked in banking, I've worked in manufacturing, all of which I've done change management and leadership coaching. But again, it was almost like stepping stones to eventually step into this business on my own. And I think through all of those experiences, I've learned so much, but I wanted to combine the creative side that I have with the technical and theoretical and practical side that I have to just evolve that into my own business.
And how did you get into change management? Because that's very different.
Yeah, I sort of fell into it. I was working at the time for a large insurance company, and I had moved into a role of Lean Six Sigma. And I did Lean Six Sigma for 7 years. And as part of those projects in Six Sigma, we were rolling out new programs, new technological tools. And I noticed that sometimes the changes that were being implemented weren't sticking. Like, it wasn't working. People weren't adopting the change. And it was through that I heard about this thing called change management. I had never heard of it. And I think I was probably about 5 years into my Lean Six Sigma journey at the time. So I just started studying about change management, and I realized it was about people. And it was about how do you bring change into a business, whether it's a small business or a large business, and how do you bring the people along? And so I just found it fascinating. My original degree was in psychology, so I've always been interested in people and human behavior. And so when I heard about change management, it was just a natural fit for me.
Okay. And so you mentioned that, how do you bring people along? So give us an example of what change management would look like.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. So change management's been around for a long time. And there's a number of theories that you can use and practical sort of methodologies and approaches. So I use a mix of all of that. And it depends on the client. So it depends on the business. It depends on the culture in the business. And it also depends on the leader in the business as to which methodology I'll use. But really, it's about engaging people in the change. So what is the change? Why are we implementing the change? And why is this important to our people, and what do they need to know about it? People want to understand what's in it for them. You know, what's the change going to do for them? And so change management is really about taking the human side of any change and putting yourself in the shoes of the employee or the client or the customer and helping them have a perspective as to why this change is taking place.
And do you find that that's met with any resistance at all? A lot of resistance, a little?
So change, it's funny, change is something that we want, but we're often afraid of. And there's a neurological basis for that. You know, we often tend to want to run away from change, even though we also want to embrace change. So there sometimes is resistance. Resistance can also be defined as just people reacting. Resistance tends to be the language that we use, but really it's a person's reacting to the change. They may want to embrace it, but they just don't know how. So change management is really about, again, stepping into their shoes and helping them understand why the change makes sense, how the change makes sense, and what it can mean for them and what the benefits are for them. All
right. Now, are you using this in this conference or workshop that you have coming up?
Yeah, so change management, leadership coaching, and the workshops, they all sort of come together in my business.
Okay.
And yes, so I'm hosting a workshop April 10th in Whitby. It's going to be at the Business Advisory Center in Durham, or BACD.
Okay.
People refer to it as BACD.
Yay.
Yes, so on Garden Street in Whitby. And that particular workshop, it's for, again, any leader. So it can be for a small business owner, it can be for an entrepreneur, or it can be for a leader who's in a corporation. It can be for a leader who has a team or not. And yes, absolutely, I'll be using some of these practices, more specifically the emotional culture deck tools that are available that I'll incorporate into that workshop.
And is that what you have here on the table?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a bit about that.
Yeah, so this is a company called Riders and Elephants, and I actually discovered them in 2020, the year of the pandemic. I was, cruising through LinkedIn, and I heard of this name, Riders and Elephants, and it piqued my interest because I'd read a book earlier that year called Switch. And in this book, Switch, they use this term, riders and elephants. And it really is talking about the human brain and how, as humans, we are either a rider or an elephant, or a little bit of both. A rider is like rational, the rational side of the brain. The elephant is the emotional side of the brain. And so anyway, later on in the year, I discovered these tools through Riders and Elephants, the company, who really uses emotional language to understand behavior. So we all have an emotional response to any change. We all have an emotional response to what it feels like to be at work. We have an emotional response to what it feels like to live through a change. And these tools help us really understand our customers' experience, our own emotional journey working as part of a business. And also there's a well-being deck as well that really helps us understand how we feel on a day-to-day basis and how that can impact our business.
So is it like you just do activities, or is there some type of a reading you do with people? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, so it's actually, first of all, it's fun. I want to express that because...
It sounds fun.
Yeah, and it is fun. And because change management can sound a bit theoretical and a bit scary to people who don't know what it is. But really just think of it as your own individual experience of change or your own individual experience of running a business. And the way that we use this tool is there's a bunch of handbooks, there's a number of canvases that we use, and then we literally play with a deck of cards. And the deck of cards have feeling words on them. And I ask a number of thought-provoking questions that we work through as a group that help the leaders understand themselves, but also help them understand their customers a little bit better, as well as understand their own well-being journey.
I love that. So what kind of challenges have you faced in this business?
In the business, Joanne Free Coaching and Consulting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the challenges, people don't know what change management is.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So here I am saying, I'm a change management consultant. Wonderful. What is that?
What is that? Yeah.
So that, of course, is about educating people and really trying to demystify what change management is. That's definitely been a challenge for me. The workshops, I've got more and more people wanting to participate, but sometimes, which is lovely, but sometimes they're not sure what this whole card thing is all about. And the funny thing about that is I'm not a card person at all myself. Like I don't sit down usually. It's not my favorite thing to do, to play cards. I'd prefer like a board game versus a card game. But I myself have found this so much fun that I find it's a really easy game to play. And so, so sometimes people are a little bit hesitant at playing cards. I would say really probably those are the main challenges.
Okay, well, that's not too bad. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure there's more.
Yeah.
Like as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Of course, there's multiple issues as an entrepreneur you face on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
Organizing your day,
Yeah.
Planning your business for the year. There's so many challenges as an individual that I face, as do all entrepreneurs.
And what about impactful failures that were more of a blessing in disguise?
Oh, that's a great question. An impactful failure. When you ask me that, it makes me think of my corporate career. I spent 7 years in a Lean Six Sigma role, as I mentioned, and probably about 3 years in, I wasn't happy. So I think what's impactful about that and what I learned about myself is to really trust my gut and my own instincts. I knew that role was not where I wanted to land, and I stayed there for 7 years. So I think I've learned through that journey to really pay attention to my instincts, my intuition, and not stay in a place that makes me unhappy for too long. Right?
Yeah.
Get in there, learn what you need to learn, and then get out. And I certainly apply that to my business. I'm thrilled now to have built a business where everything I'm doing, I absolutely am passionate about, and that feels really good. So I don't have that feeling of, oh dear, I've made a mistake, I'm in the wrong place.
That's really, really important, what you said about, get in there, do what you need to do, and then, move on. Because I find that so many people, they spend way too long in a job or a business that they don't like anymore, they're not passionate about, or doesn't serve them anymore, and they stay there, and a lot of times they're just afraid to move on.
And so, I was afraid to take the step. And being in Lean Six Sigma, it's a great space to be in, and I knew that, so I knew it was good for my career. But you're right, like absolutely, learn what you need to learn. Take the tidbits of, whatever it is that you take from that role. But if it doesn't feel right, don't stay there long, because there's so many choices out there. There's so many opportunities out there. So don't wait. And because I always think the worst thing you can do is make a decision, make a change. And the worst thing perhaps is that it was the wrong decision or wrong change. So then you just change again, right?
Now, can you just explain was it Lean Six Sigma? Okay, what is that?
Yeah, Lean Six Sigma is a business process methodology. It's been around for a long time. It's really about standardizing processes. So it's like you look at your business and you look at how you run your business from start to stop. What are your processes and how can you refine them to make them leaner so that it's a more smooth experience for the customer as well as for yourself running the business and also your employees. So you literally look at the process of your business from start to stop, and you look at where there are some areas that perhaps could be removed from that process that really don't make sense anymore, so that you can trim out the waste in your process and make the experience for the customer and the experience for the employer and employee much smoother. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great conversation.
Thank you.
And stay tuned. We'll be speaking with Lisa of Saffron Equine Center next.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
takeoff.
Here we go, boys. Here we go.
16 teams, one champion for the greatest trophy in sports.
You know why I'm here.
A time for new heroes to be born.
This is a guy who wants to get to the Stanley Cup Finals.
This is what I'm here for.
Stanley Cup champions.
I'm here. I'm here for the Stanley Cup.
They've reached the summit.
I'm here to win.
The Stanley Cup playoffs. Here we go.
You're watching Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to At the Heart of Business. I am your host, Judith Tate. At the Heart of Business is a conversation with women in business discussing their challenges and successes. Our next guest is Lisa, owner of Saffron Equine Center. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
So tell us about Saffron Equine Center. I love the story.
Do you want the story of where their name came from?
Yeah.
Yes.
So let's hear that first.
So Saffron Equine Center is a little brainchild of mine from way back. Saffron is actually the name of a pony I had when I was a child.
Yeah.
And I got him when I was probably about 9. And he was probably about maybe 12 or 14 at the time. And I had him up until he was well into his 30s. He was probably 35 or so when he passed away. So all of the years of his life, he never lived in a barn. He was outside, never had anything fancy. And I had always thought as a kid that if I was ever going to have, I had dreams of having a equine space, and I was going to call it Saffron something. And so there's where the story came from. But the little pony was particularly special to me because he taught me so many valuable lessons. And that's kind of where the whole process came together for the Saffron Equine Center and the equine assisted learning.
Yeah.
Because I learned so many valuable lessons from this little horse.
Yeah.
And it was just such a wonderful experience, and I just loved the whole thing about being around the horses and found a way to share that with other people.
Oh, that's great. So tell us a bit about how you share that with other people.
Well, equine assisted learning is the term for a particular way of interacting with horses. It's fairly new. And really what it's based on is just the way that horses interact with people. So learning how to interact with a horse and communicate in a way that's meaningful for them is a great model for personal growth. So that's the basis of equine assisted learning. It's a skills-based experiential learning opportunity. So you're working with horses in hand on the ground. There's no riding involved. There's no horse experience required. It's just horses are very unique in the way they interact with humans, and they create these wonderful teachable moments.
And exactly, well, maybe not exactly, but how, in what way, how do horses help us that way to learn?
It's all inherent in the nature of what horses are. Horses are a prey animal, and so their most primary need is for safety and for leadership. And the way they live in herds is a lot similar to the way we as humans live in herds of people. There's a hierarchy, there's relationship, there's interconnection. Everybody has a role to play. And it's fascinating that these horses who are prey animals and live in fight or flight are willing to work with us who are predators, really, right? So it's that nature of them being a prey animal that they're constantly surveying their environment. Their senses are very astute and they can pick up things. But the fact that they live in relationship gives us all kinds of parallels for how to live in our own lives. So a couple examples. You said how specifically they help us. So working with horses and learning to communicate with them, knowing that they are these prey animals and they need safety and leadership, they give us all kinds of opportunities for self-awareness. So there's a lot of opportunities to learn about yourself, which is a very valuable skill to learn in life, and then to build on that. We can learn a lot of emotional regulation. We can learn skills of leadership. We can learn skills of communication. We can learn skills of confidence building and personal boundaries. And horses will show us things about ourselves that we're not necessarily always aware of. We think we communicate really well. And you start trying to make an arrangement or trying to work with a horse, you think you're communicating, and they'll tell you quite clearly that you're not.
So do you get people that are afraid of horses?
Yes, lots of times people come in. We've seen that a number of times in our women's workshops where people come in groups, and the women love the idea of spending the day together, and they come in with a friend, but they're a little nervous about the horse.
Wow.
And the safety is a priority
Yes.
in our work, but it's a very, very low risk activity working in the arena with horses.
Yeah.
Because you're just working on the ground. Sometimes you're working with a halter, sometimes you're working at liberty.
Yeah.
But not all of the horses I have on my property are EAL prepared. The ones that are prepared are comfortable working around people.
Yeah.
And so,
Oh, that's good. So
Yeah.
you know it's completely safe for anyone who's afraid.
yes, it is very safe. And because it's self-directed, people can engage with the horse at the level they're comfortable with.
Okay.
So there's no right or wrong answers. When we go into the arena, I have obstacles and sort of challenge situations to solve, and people can work individually or with the group
Oh, okay.
at kind of their own speed, and I'm there to facilitate the learning. So
Yeah.
it's very much what they bring in to the situation. They work with that. So if they're at a distance, or if they want to be up close, or handling the horse themselves, it's very, very much self-directed.
Okay. So tell us about that, like workshops or any events that you do or that you have coming up. Like, how can women get involved?
Absolutely. So I was doing this work part-time for a number of years. And when I was doing that, it was mostly women that I was working with, and it was mostly weekend workshops. So I have a number of things. So if you go on my website, you can see what's booked right now. I've got a mother and daughter Mother's Day special event coming up. It's a one-day workshop. It's like 9 till 3:30, so it's the full day. And there's snacks and refreshments, and we work in the arena for 2 different sessions, and then we do some other work in the classroom.
Yeah.
And then I also have 2 other events coming up, and those will come up usually spring and fall, where it's a more intensive 2-day women's workshop. And it's more about women working on personal situations. We as women spend so much time offering care and nurturing and support to other people that we
Yes.
don't often do a lot of self-care. So this is 2 days, fairly intensive,
Yeah.
where you really get to dig a little deeper on self. And so we spend a lot of time working on, where I'm at in my life, what am I doing, and am I happy with that, and do I need a change? So again, it's very self-directed. We have some sort of broad agendas where it's self-reflective, but each woman brings in different issues. So
Yeah.
we spend time sharing those things with ourselves, and then we spend some time in the arena where the interacting with the horses brings up other issues, and so you get a little more time to dig in.
Wow. Sounds really very unique. I love this
It
business.
is quite unique, yes.
Yeah. So what kind of challenges have you had in this business?
Challenges like business-wise
Yeah.
or in the providing of the services?
Well, let's go with business-wise. Let's start with that.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of unique, and
Yeah.
it's not well known, and people don't necessarily understand what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's also expensive, right?
Yeah.
Because horses are expensive to care for. So I would say probably the biggest challenge is like just getting everything up and running and in place, and being able to afford to care for horses and provide all the stuff that they need in order for them to be able to be of service in the programming.
Oh, okay.
So, it's not like, just get a business name and register it and start online. There's a lot of the physical stuff behind it.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
can imagine. And what about just challenges in running the business or in like doing your programs or with clients?
I think the challenges there are really making connections with the market.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably fairly consistent with any business, is really finding a way to connect with your market. And being an entrepreneur, it brings its own challenges, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that that's actually a really good point, like connecting, finding that market, because that's very, very niche.
Yes,
Right.
it is.
And yeah, so how do you market yourself that way? Because like, who would your ideal client be?
Yes, and I've sort of, as I've been working through this, I've shifted back and forth a little bit. And when I first think about that, I think, oh, is it women? Oh, is it youth? Is it? And I think it's more about the need. So it could be anybody who is in need of change in their life. And so, yes, initially I was really targeting working with women, and I'm still continuing to do that. And so when I'm marketing specifically, then I'm connecting with different organizations. Like the Heart of Networking is a really great example. There's a lot of women in business, and so connecting with other women in business. Whereas looking at a need, people who have a challenge and are looking for some support, then I find it more effective to market directly to an organization. So an example, I've connected recently with an organization that serves women who are in crisis.
Oh, good.
Now, it does happen to be women, but it is people who are going through a crisis and are looking to build some inner resilience and some supports. And so I have marketed directly, show them a package, invite them out for a tour, offer a pilot program so they can get some feedback on how these programs can serve their clients. So online and media, social media is one marketing, but for me, I have found the most effective marketing is to connect directly with a target market and face-to-face offer them a tour and a demo.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And how do you define success?
How do I define success? I don't know. There's little successes. Every time a student, even though I'm doing one-on-ones, a young person comes in and they leave with having an aha moment or learned something, I consider that success. I mean, obviously there's financial success, but you can't always measure impact just by finances. I measure the success by the results and the feedback I get from the participants. Yeah, I love it. I mean, that's really why I've been drawn into this, is because I have found my life so enriched by the involvement with horses, and I just love to share that, and I love to see other people get that feedback from it too.
Yeah, I can see that, because horses, like, they're just such beautiful creatures.
They're very unique.
Yeah, they're just very, very, very different, just beautiful, and there's something about being around them that even if you have a fear, like, I'm pretty sure anyone going in with a fear, they'll come out with a sense of calm, because they're just, like, they're just calming, and they make you feel safe.
Yeah, and there's science to support that. I mean, that's an experience I've had all my years growing up and always wanted to share that. Now there's like some scientific stuff that explains that, that just makes it even more solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who are the people, dead or alive, that inspire you the most, or who have inspired you?
That's a really good question.
Could be family, could be someone in the horse riding world.
That's a good question. I don't think I've thought about that for a while. There are people in my network of Equine Connection, the organization that I received my certification through. Because when I first started looking into this, there's a lot of different avenues to do equine assisted work. And I searched up a number of them, and the one I landed on was called Equine Connection, and that's an organization out of Alberta. And I got a lot of inspiration from that organization, because it's run by two women, and they weren't people who had some sort of extra special spot in the horse world. I kind of identified with them, I think, because they were just people that loved horses, and they wanted to make something special out of it, and they started with very, very simple beginnings and have turned this into a huge global organization. Yeah, I just find that very inspiring.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. I love what you're doing, and it's a very unique business with such beautiful creatures.
Thank you for the opportunity to share it.
Yay, thanks for being here. And thanks to everyone for watching. We'll see you next time on another episode of At the Heart of Business.